All right, so we're doing a deep dive today into, well, 5,000 years of Athenian history. Whew. But no worries, we're not getting lost in the weeds. We're going for, like, the greatest hits of Athens.
That's a good way to put it. It's more than just names and dates. It's about understanding how Athens became, well, Athens.
Exactly. We talked about the birthplace of democracy, the foundation of Western philosophy, a city that's been knocked down countless times, but always seems to find a way to bounce back.
And what's fascinating to me is that even 5,000 years ago, people were drawn to this very spot. We're talking about the Neolithic period, the very dawn of agriculture, and we have evidence right there on the Acropolis.
On the Acropolis itself.
Yeah, pottery shards, remnants of wells, telling us that people were already establishing a community on that hilltop.
That's wild. So basically, people were settling there when farming was just getting started.
It's incredible, right?
And the Acropolis, I mean, you can't miss it, right? It's this imposing rock, this natural fortress right in the heart of the city.
Exactly. Strategic advantage was practically built into Athens from the very beginning. And by the Mycenaean era, around 1400 BC, we actually see evidence of a major Mycenaean fortress on the Acropolis.
So we're talking like the warrior culture, elaborate palaces, all
Yeah,
that.
stuff of legends, right? And what's remarkable is that even after the Bronze Age collapse, around 1200 BC, Athens didn't just disappear.
It weathered the storm.
Exactly. Rebuilt and ultimately emerged stronger, setting the stage for its eventual rise to prominence. But, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's fast forward a bit to the 7th century BC. Things are getting a little heated in Athens.
That's what we meet Draco, right? The lawmaker whose name became basically synonymous with harsh punishment.
Oh, yes, Draconian laws. But it might seem counterintuitive, but Draco's severity was actually a response to a breakdown in social order.
So the idea was to deter crime through extreme punishment.
Exactly. Make the consequences so harsh that nobody would even think about breaking the law.
But that didn't really work out, did it?
Not exactly. It was a bit like putting a bandage on a broken leg.
Right, addressing the symptoms but not the root cause.
And that's where Solon comes in around 594 BC.
So long.
Yeah, Solon, he understood that true stability, like lasting stability, required a more just and equitable society. So he did something pretty radical for the time.
What did he do?
He abolished debt bondage.
Debt bondage.
Yeah, imagine being enslaved just because you owed money.
Wow.
Solon said, nope, not in Athens. He also broke up those massive estates, redistributing land and power, and he gave political rights to the poorest class, the Thetai.
So they could actually participate in government.
Exactly, vote in the assembly and all that. Now, it wasn't full-blown democracy yet, but it was a huge step in that direction.
A pretty bold move for the time, for sure.
Absolutely, it shifted the balance of power in a way that Athenian society had never seen before.
But, with any big social experiment, I imagine there were some growing pains along the way.
Oh, there were, definitely. And that's where we encounter a figure who often gets labeled a tyrant, Pisistratos.
Now, I always find that word tyrant a bit tricky when it comes to ancient Greece.
Yeah, it's not always a straightforward translation.
Right, it doesn't necessarily have that same negative connotation as it does today.
Exactly. In ancient Greece, a tyrant could be someone who, seized power outside the traditional means.
So not necessarily a cruel or oppressive ruler.
Right. Pisistratos, for example, he actually maintained Solon's constitution.
So he wasn't just overturning the whole system.
No, he was more about consolidating power for himself and his family.
But he also seems to have had a knack for infrastructure. Wasn't he the one who built the first aqueduct tunnel in Athens?
That's him, brought water from Mount Hymettus and the Ilissos River into the city, ensuring a reliable water supply. It was pretty crucial for any growing urban center.
Yeah, for sure. You can even still see parts of this ancient aqueduct system today, right?
You can, if you know where to look. Some of the Athens metro stations, they've incorporated these ancient structures into their design. It's pretty cool, actually.
That's amazing. So we have Pisistratos, he dies, and his sons, Hippias and Hipparchus, they take over.
Right, but they weren't quite as adept at navigating the complexities of Athenian politics as their father.
Things get a little messy.
A little messy. Hipparchus, he gets assassinated in 514 BC.
Assassinated?
Yeah, apparently over a personal feud, something like a love triangle gone wrong.
Wow.
And his brother, Hippias, he reacts, well, not so well. He kind of clamps down, becomes a real dictator.
This time in the more negative sense of the word.
Exactly. And unsurprisingly, the Athenians weren't too happy about this turn of events.
I imagine not.
This unpopular rule, it creates the perfect opportunity for Cleisthenes and his, well, truly radical democratic reforms. But that's a story for another time. So we're back, diving deeper into Athenian history. Remember last time we left off with Athens on top of the world after, beating the Persians.
Yeah, they were like the big dogs of the Aegean, leading the Delian League and everything. But like you hinted, all that power, it kind of came with a price tag, didn't it?
It definitely did. Think of it like uneasy lies the head that wears the crown.
Right. That whole Delian League thing, it started as a way to protect everyone from the Persians, but it kind of morphed into something else along the way.
Exactly. Athenian leadership, it gradually turned into, well, more like an empire. And of course, those simmering resentments among the other Greek city-states, particularly Sparta, they weren't just going to disappear.
So basically, Athenian power, it led to, well, the Peloponnesian War, right?
Right. It breaks out in 431 BC, and it was a huge clash, not just of armies, but of, ideologies, ambitions, the whole shebang. You had Athens, the champion of democracy, a naval superpower.
And on the other side,
Sparta, the embodiment of military discipline, a land-based powerhouse. They were like the total opposite of Athens. And this conflict, it would consume Greece for decades.
yeah, the Peloponnesian War, it often described as a war of attrition, like a long, drawn-out struggle, both sides just grinding each other down.
Exactly. And, in the beginning, the Athenians, led by Pericles, brilliant strategist, but, well, maybe a little too ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
He decided, okay, we're going to use our navy, our strengths, to harass the Spartans, disrupt their trade, avoid big land battles, just wear them down.
A classic strategy.
It was, but it had its limits. It's hard to win a decisive victory when you're always in the defensive.
Always reacting, never dictating the terms.
Right. And then a major turning point comes in 430 BC. A plague breaks out in Athens.
A plague.
A devastating one. Thousands die, including Pericles himself. And this just cripples Athens, not just physically, but mentally too.
Yeah, a plague like that, it's got to do something to your morale, to your sense of, I don't know, your destiny.
Absolutely. It shakes that Athenian confidence. And then comes the Sicilian expedition.
The Sicilian expedition. It's one of those classic stories of hubris and overreach.
Oh, yeah, big time. So the Athenian assembly, they get swayed by Alcibiades, charismatic guy, but not the best strategist.
What happens?
They decide to launch this massive expedition to conquer Sicily.
Sicily.
Yeah, Sicily. The thinking was, if we take Sicily, we can control the grain trade, cut off Spartan supplies, game changer.
Seems pretty bold.
Super bold and super reckless. The expedition, it was just a disaster from the start. Poorly planned, poorly executed. The Athenians, they end up trapped in Syracuse, suffer huge losses.
A major setback.
Absolutely catastrophic. And they never really recover. But here's the thing. Even in the middle of this war, with everything falling apart, the Athenians, they still clung to their democracy.
Sounded amazing, right?
Yeah, there's even a coup in 411 BC. A small group tries to overthrow democracy, but within a year it's restored.
The Athenians, they just weren't willing to let go of that idea of self-governance.
Even when their world was falling apart.
But eventually, even Athenian resilience, even democracy, it couldn't hold back the Spartans forever.
It couldn't. In 404 BC, after years of fighting, Athens surrenders. It was a crushing defeat.
The end of the Athenian Golden Age.
It really was. The Spartans, they impose harsh terms. They tear down the city walls, dismantle the Athenian fleet, and install a pro-Spartan oligarchy, the 30 tyrants.
Brutal. It really seemed like the end for Athenian democracy.
It did, but the thing is, with Athens, it's never that simple. The Athenian spirit, that drive, that ingenuity, it's about to make a comeback in a big way.
So last time we left off with Athens, man, things were not looking good. Sparta had won the war. The 30 tyrants were in charge. It really felt like, curtains for Athenian democracy.
Yeah, it was a dark time. But, well, the thing about Athenians, they don't stay down for long.
You mean they bounce back?
They do. In, less than a year, a group of Athenian exiles, they actually overthrow the tyrants.
No way.
Yeah. Led by Thrasybulus, they defeat them and restore democracy. In 403 BC...
That's incredible. So democracy is back, but what about, Athenian power? Could they ever really regain their former glory after such a crushing defeat?
Well, it's a question that, that must have weighed heavily on their minds, and they definitely tried. They formed the Second Athenian League, hoping to unite the Greek city-states against Sparta.
So like round two of the power struggle.
Kind of, yeah. They even fought in the Corinthian War, this whole tangled web of alliances and rivalries involving Persia and other Greek powers. But the world was changing.
It always is, right?
Right. A new power was on the rise. Macedon, led by, well, a pretty ambitious king, Philip II.
Philip II, the name rings a bell.
He's a brilliant strategist and a ruthless politician. He saw an opportunity to unite all those squabbling Greek city-states under his rule.
And he wasn't afraid to use force to do it.
Exactly. Diplomacy, military might, whatever it took.
And Athens, still kind of reeling from the Peloponnesian War, they just weren't in a position to resist.
That's right. In 338 BC, at the Battle of Chaeronea, Philip's forces, they crush the combined Athenian and Theban armies.
It's almost like a tragic irony. Athens, the birthplace of democracy, falls to a monarchy.
Yeah, it is. But even in defeat, Athens, it didn't just disappear.
What do you mean?
Athenian culture, their philosophy, their literature, art, architecture, all that, it continued to shape the Hellenistic world that emerged after Alexander the Great's conquests.
So even though Athenian political power was gone, their ideas, their culture, it lived on. It's like soft power, I guess.
Exactly. But, the story keeps going, right?
Well, yeah, Rome comes along. What happens to Athens under Roman rule?
Well, it kind of shifts from being a dominant power to, like, a respected center of learning.
A center of learning.
Yeah. It's interesting. The Romans, they were all about military power conquest, but they also had this deep respect for Greek culture, for intellectual pursuits.
So Athens kind of becomes like a university town within the Roman Empire.
That's a great way to put it. Their schools, their philosophical traditions, they attracted students and scholars from all over the empire.
Wow. And there's even a story about Sulla. Wasn't he a Roman general? He besieged Athens, but he spared a lot of the city's buildings and monuments.
Yeah, maybe out of respect for, Athenian culture. It's like a conqueror saying, hey, I may have beaten you on the battlefield, but I still recognize the power of your ideas.
Powerful stuff.
And this respect for Athenian culture, it continues under later Roman emperors, especially Hadrian. He was a big fan of all things Greek. He actually launched huge building projects in Athens, like the Library of Hadrian.
The Library of Hadrian. I've seen pictures. It's incredible. Still standing today, right?
It is. It's a great example of how, empires rise and fall, but the power of ideas, the legacy of a city like Athens, it can last for centuries. But, like all good things, this period of relative peace and prosperity for Athens, it didn't last forever.
What happened?
Late antiquity, man. Not an easy time to be around. Barbarian invasions, the Roman Empire weakening, and, well, the rise of Christianity. It changes everything.
Yeah, Christianity becomes the dominant religion.
Right. And those ancient temples, they're converted into churches. The intellectual focus shifts away from classical philosophy. It's a whole new era.
So what's next for Athens? The Roman Empire is falling apart. The Middle Ages are dawning. What happens to our beloved city?
Well, it becomes part of the Byzantine Empire.
The Byzantine Empire?
Yeah, the eastern half of the Roman Empire, it survives for centuries. And Greek language, Greek culture, they remain strong there. It's during this Byzantine period that you get those beautiful churches, those incredible mosaics. They add another layer, to the city's already rich history.
Right. Athens is like this amazing tapestry of cultures, layer upon layer, spanning thousands of years.
And then on top of that, you have the Crusades in the 13th century, the Ottomans in the 15th century, even the Venetians, they bombard the Acropolis in the 17th century. Each event, it leaves its mark on the city and its people. It's kind of mind-boggling to think about.
It is. So much history, so much change. But through it all, Athens never lost its connection to its past, did it?
No, it never did. Even under Ottoman rule, those ancient ruins, they were always there, like a reminder, it's this glorious past. And when Greece finally wins its independence in the 19th century, well, where else would they choose as their capital but Athens?
The cradle of democracy. It had come full circle.
It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And today, when you walk those bustling streets of modern Athens, you see the echoes of its past everywhere. In the ruins, the museums, the very spirit of the people.
It's a reminder that history, it isn't just, something we read about in books. It's alive. It's all around us. It's in the places we visit, the stories we tell, the values we cherish.
And the story of Athens, with all its ups and downs, its innovations, its resilience, it's a story that, still speaks to us today. It makes you wonder, what would those early Athenians, those Neolithic farmers who first settled on the Acropolis, what would they think if they could see their city now?
I don't know if they'd recognize the modern metropolis, but maybe they'd feel that same spirit, that same drive that's always defined Athens.
It's a fascinating question to think about, isn't it? And that's what we want you to do, our listeners, to keep exploring history, culture, the human spirit, to keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe you'll find some answers along the way.